Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live. Good afternoon and welcome to our Sunday edition of the Locker Room as we look back on the games from yesterday and obviously the games from today. My name is Graham Duffy and I'm delighted as always to be joined by Dave Smith. Dave, how are you?
Hi, very well, thanks, Graham. Good day yesterday. Went to watch for Martin against Keith in the Highland League. A lot better than the dross that Aberdeen served up, but we'll obviously get on to that. And a good few beers afterwards. Went to watch the FA Cup. So, yeah, good day out. And pleasure to be on with your fine self.
Good stuff. We are here obviously till 5 o'clock. We are covering the games from yesterday and we'll get to that in a second. There is a game on just now and it is at Ammon Vale and it's still after about 71 minutes, Livingston 0, Hearts 0. The first half, I'm not going to lie, there wasn't a lot to write home about. It was a really poor game. Oda for Hearts probably should score. Second half's been a bit better. Hearts probably the more dominant side. Garan Qualls caused a few problems. Probably should have scored actually. Humphreys had a chance, well saved for Shamal George. Livingston haven't really caused a lot of problems, but they're defending very well. But at the moment, it's still Livingston 0, Hearts 0. Later on at 4 o'clock, it is Dundee United against Celtic. We'll give you the team news for that very shortly, but that's got about another hour till that game kicks off. But we will start with looking back at the games from yesterday, and there's only one place to start, and it is the game at Easter Road, called El Sacchio for obvious reasons. Hibs came into this in the back of a derby defeat in the Cup to Hearts. Aberdeen, as we know, came out the back of this on the back of a 5-0 defeat from Hearts and an embarrassing Scottish Cup defeat to Darvel. The chairman, Dave Cormack, came out on Thursday with a statement to basically say, you're in the job just now, but you need an immediate response. What Aberdeen got was anything but an immediate response, as Hibernian won by 6-0. A hat-trick from Josh Campbell, a goal from Eli Ewan, a goal from Kevin Nisbet, and a goal from Will Fish. Dave, it's going to be very easy to come on to Aberdeen, and I will do in a minute, but a fantastic result for Hibs and a much-needed performance from Lee Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very good performance. They didn't have to work too hard for their goals, and I'm not being that many disrespect, and I'm not being that many any sour grapes or anything like that, but they didn't have to work too hard for their goals. But the other side to that, where reverberate is you've got to take the chances that's in front of you. At least 3 out of 6 goals, whatever, 4 to 6 goals were set pieces or penalties. The 3 set pieces, Hibs did very, very well because they never got into very good positions, or indeed the set pieces got into good areas, like Will Fish in particular for his goal, took his goal very, very well. And the goal they gave for me was Josh Campbell's. I like the way in which the ball flew into the box, and Campbell just had that header to just go and fly into the net. I like that goal because it was disappointing from an Aberdeen perspective, but at exactly the same time, the driving the ball into the box, but also the ability for Josh Campbell to be about 16 yards out to go and fire that header into the net can't be undermined. And I thought it was a very, very good finish as far as Will Fish is concerned. I mean, a lot of people are saying it's Aberdeen are vulnerable, all that kind of stuff. And that's sentiments that you very much have to acknowledge because let's be honest, Aberdeen are in a very precarious position right now. But at exactly the same time, I mean, you've got to beat what's in front of you. That's exactly what Lee Johnson's side did. Don't forget, Graham, there was a lot of not fear, but there was a lot of question marks around Hibs prior to yesterday as well because Ryan Porteous had departed for Watford, and it was interesting to see how Hibs were going to be defensively. I mean, they were comfortable enough, but it was always going to be comfortable because of the way Aberdeen played and the way Aberdeen set up and all that kind of stuff. And on the other hand, Kevin Nisbet obviously turning down that move to Millwall on Friday. It didn't look like it derailed him or dented his confidence because he went and scored yesterday. So that was his eight games for Kevin Nisbet. So, I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of unknowns. And it would have gotten a bit hectic behind the scenes and within the dressing room. But for a player like Kevin Nisbet's stature to come in and score again tells you a lot about the character Nisbet. And if he stays in the club beyond Tuesday, it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on and see if the attitude's the same. But it looked like a guy that still wanted to be at Hibs yesterday. So Oh no, a very positive performance as far as the Hibs are concerned. They're very welcome 3 points.
Some players just have teams they love scoring against. I believe Josh Campbell has scored 5 goals this season, and they've all come against Aberdeen.
Yeah, I've seen things on Twitter, Graham, that a lot of the Hibs fans don't really rate Josh Campbell or think he suits the way Hibs play or don't think he's right for what Hibs are trying to do. But I mean, exactly the same time. He showed yesterday, I know Aberdeen are underballs, I'll reiterate again, but he showed yesterday how he can do all different dynamics to his game. Score goals. Well, he scored a hat yesterday, and that was his 5th goal against Aberdeen, I went to believe. So that's some going. But also, he was very, very good in the middle of the park. A lot of people forget with young players, this is the same with Josh Campbell, a lot of people forget that young players, they are prone to mistaking them. It's not like they're liability, but they are prone to one or two different mistakes. And I think you see that with certain players. I spoke about Aberdeen Friday and the fact that they fielded a number of young players in the first team of late, especially because of financial constraints and so forth. But at exactly the same time, Hibs have had a few young players in the ranks as well. The boy O'Connor that won a penalty, is it Kane O'Connor? I think it is.
Yeah.
I think he's related to Gary O'Connor. In fact, is Gary O'Connor's son, perhaps? Uh, yeah, I thought he did very, very well for the penalty. He was ultimately got Liam Skills' second sending off at the Easter Road yesterday. So, in terms of Josh Campbell, back onto the topic, and yeah, Josh was absolutely fantastic yesterday and merited a man of the match performance.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on Kevin Nisbet there, and I did see that Lee Johnson had said that Kevin Nisbet had said to him, I want to start this game. Now, I think that's very good from Kevin Nisbet. He could have easily been, not in a huff, but he could have easily said, you know what, I don't really want to play. My head's not really in it. But it shows good character, the fact that he did say that he wanted to start.
Yeah, I mean, all the information regarding Kevin Nisbet and why Millwall fell through will remain private. And there's been rumours going about that he failed medical and all that kind of stuff. But I think if he failed the medical, I think it'd have been out in the public domain because it's not that kind of thing that you keep internal. Because let's be honest, somebody would have said something. But yeah, I think regarding Nisbet, it probably was just a case that Millwall didn't feel right for him. Also, exactly the same time, if Kevin Nisbet is knocking at the manager's door and saying, I wanted to start, that shows you that he's hungry, he's keen, he's showing desire, and it shows that Hibs is a good environment to be in. It might not look at it, but it might not look it from the outside looking in. But for players to be knocking at the door and saying, I want to be starting games, is a very, very good sign indeed. And I think Wayne Johnson are looking for a lot more Kevin Nisbets, not exactly a Kevin Nisbet defender as such, but they're looking for players that can have that same attitude. And if they can prove that in turn, then obviously Hibs will be in a much better place moving forward. So I think there's a lot of positives to come out of that. And the fact that Nisbet did net his 8th goal in 8 games is a good thing indeed. I think the one thing, I don't mean to sound critical, especially after a 6-0 win, especially after a 6-0 win for him yesterday, but I think the one thing from Johnson's perspective is I don't think he should be relying heavily on Nisbet. He's still got Boyle out for the season, and I still think he's got one or two. I still think he needs to freshen up the squad before Tuesday, if I'm going to be brutally honest, because yeah, it was a very strong performance from Hibs yesterday. But if Hibs want top 6 ambitions, they pretty much have to add to the squad. I think the sky's the limit for Hibs in terms of that because when you look at Hibs, they're going under the radar a little bit because of bad results recently. But they're sitting fifth. No, they're sitting sixth, I think. Fifth or sixth, either or. And they're in a strong position. And I was having a look at the league table just before we came on, and you look at the teams lower down the table, they're struggling for consistency. So if Hibs can get players in, the confidence will just grow as time goes on.
100%. I looked at league table as well before this game, and they're a point behind Livingston and 8 points behind Hearts. So they still have a decent chance of that top 6. But I think as well, I mean, in terms of Hibs, obviously they're under pressure after the game last weekend. And I know a lot of folk have said that it was only Aberdeen, but that's got to give Lee Johnson and Hibs a massive, massive lift. The fact they have won and the fact they've scored 6 goals at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you reverberate back to the start of the month, Graham, especially after the Edinburgh Derby defeated Tynecastle, a lot of people were calling for Lee Johnson's head even then. And that was probably because of how things have looked from the outside looking in. terms of Lee Johnson being out in the Scotsman in Edinburgh the night before. Not alcohol drinking, I mean, but obviously being out in the social scene when in reality he should have just been a professional and just looked after his own guys and focused on the task at hand. There's also last Sunday, the pressure did pretty much rally on after that result. And there's also been a couple of results in there recently that just quite simply have been a little bit underwhelming. I mean, in all fairness to Hibs, they have been fairly competitive in games, but I do think the lack of consistency a little bit. That's probably because Lee Johnson struggled to find out a little bit of a formula. Now, in terms of the feedback and the messages that he provides to the media, it looks. I don't think arrogant's the right word, but he looks like a guy and sounds like a guy that only wants the best for Hibs. And in comparison to other managers such as Maloney, right, who's back in football, me and Wigan Athletic, of course, but in comparison to guys such as Maloney, I think Maloney, because he was so young or so young in management terms, I think Sean Maloney was kind of he didn't understand how to handle the media to a certain extent. Lee Johnson's had 500 games in football management and probably knows how to manage the media a little bit more. And I think the fact that from the outside looking in, or we'll look at it from a Scottish media perspective and say that he's saying all the wrong things, he's very critical of his Hibs side, but if you look at it in comparison to Maloney, I think there's a lot more passion and a lot more enthusiasm coming out of Lee Johnson, and it's starting to show now.
There's 3 days left in the window. How many more signings and what positions do you think Hibs would look to strengthen?
Well, as I said, I think they need to get one or two strikers in because Boyle's injured, and I just think it'd be too much for responsibility for Kevin Nisbet to be the lead figure for Hibs this season. A defensive midfielder wouldn't go amiss either, and then most importantly, defenders because Ryan Porteous is away and Rocky Bashiri is obviously injured for a couple of months. Had it not been against a vulnerable Aberdeen who are in a predicament, I'd have liked to have seen Hibs against, let me think, a Livingston or a St Mirren. See how they got on, see how the defence got on. I don't think yesterday answered too many questions defensively, or from the outside, it didn't answer a lot of questions for us to go and examine in full prosperity in terms of how they were. I think the questions will be answered further down the line. If there's no adjustments by Tuesday, we'll look back to this and say, well, there's your answer.
We've got about 8 minutes or so left at Amon Vale. It's still Livingston 0, Hearts 0. Hearts pushing for trying to get this opening goal, but Livingston very difficult to beat. It's been a much better second half than the first half was. I mean, a few chances, but still 0-0 at the moment. Let's talk about Aberdeen. That's obviously the main story. They get beat 6-0. 19 minutes after the game finishes, Jim Goodwin is sacked. Now, we can talk about Jim Goodwin, we can talk about Dave Cormack. Dave Cormack did his interview after the game. He was very emotional, but we have to talk about on the park because those Aberdeen players yesterday, Dave, were an absolute embarrassment. Every goal, you could talk about every goal, but the second one, for example, the corner is played in from a set piece is played in. Now, yes, it's a great header from Josh Campbell, but he's at the edge of the box with nobody marking him. The third goal, Ross McCrory out-muscled by Eli Yuan. The last goal, Will Fish, completely unmarked. That, for me, is not a Jim Goodwin problem. That is Aberdeen players chucking it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been reports, the alleged reports of bust-ups between the players at Goodwin and all that kind of stuff. I think that has been, funnily enough, now. And I've tried to deny it every bit under the sun, considering my position as a weekend in terms of I go out to games and obviously speak to people, and I didn't want people picking up on it saying, this guy is saying this, why is he saying this, blah, blah, blah. But I'm looking at it that way. I am looking at it that way, saying the bus stops must be true, because quite simply, I think the players deliberately got Goodwin dismissed. I don't know if you agree. I think the players deliberately got Goodwin dismissed. do not put in such a pitiful performance against, well, even if Celtic and Rangers had played Aberdeen yesterday and won 6-0, Aberdeen fans still would have been incensed. They'd have still been irate with the scoreline and how the outcome was and the complexion of the performance and the result. So there's lots and lots and lots for Aberdeen to work on in every aspect of the football club. Not just players, not just management, but behind the scenes as well. Behind the scenes to come later on in the show. But players, we'll start with the players. Deliberate animosity and friction towards Jim Goodwin. Definitely been knives crossed. But then, let's be honest, Aberdeen's had an identity since, can I be honest and say, since Derek McInnes has gone, that it's been same old Aberdeen, where they've been underwhelming. They've thrown the managers under the bus, and they've quite simply not been good enough. Now, it's not a problem in the changing room. And if there is a problem in the changing room, get the players that are showing a bit of ego, showing a bit of that out. Because that's quite simply how it works now. Jim Goodwin's an astute and intelligent enough guy. I'd like to think that if there was any of that, they'd be straight out. But it's hard to suggest that from the outside looking in. And I think it would have shown a bigger picture had that happened. So that's where it gets vitally interesting and fascinating for myself personally. But on to Jim Goodwin now. Yes, the performances haven't been good enough recently. Jim Goodwin has a portion of the blame. And the reason why I say a portion is because of the investment in the players he's brought in. Ramadani, good signing. Miovski, when he's firing, good signing. Duke, good signing. For me, Ramadani and Duke are probably the players of the season for me so far in Aberdeen shirt. Or Johnny Hayes. I'd have either of those three as my players of the season so far. Who else? There is a couple of players in there that failed to deceive. Jaden Richardson in particular. Hayden Coulson. I thought Hayden Coulson was pro yesterday. But yeah, the big question for me, the big answer for me is I hate chairmans and I hate owners and I hate managers that come out and say we've scouted in 26 different countries. All fine and well, right? It shows your scouting department, shows your head of recruitment and so forth for doing their jobs. Fine. It shows they're earning a wage. Fine. But exactly the same time, I'm trying to think right this minute, and it will come to me. But Aberdeen plays St Mirren on Wednesday game, and I'm trying to think right now who's going to play defence against St Mirren. Because it'll be, I'm trying to think here, it'll be either Stewart, the two defensive linemen were Stewart and McCrory, or it'll be Stewart and bring somebody in from the youth system. For me, I'd bring Jack Milne back from Kelty Hearts, although I'm not sure if they could do that. But if the opportunity was there, I'd bring Jack Milne back from Kelty Hearts alone. I would develop him into getting 10 to 15 first-team games for Aberdeen with skills at the left back, knowing that we've got an accomplished left back there. Give Jack Milne 10 to 15 games. Hope that Aberdeen's season doesn't go and peter out. And then we've got a good line, McCrory, Jack Milne, Stewart, and Scales. I think Jim Goodwin's went for the experienced approach, which isn't a bad approach at all, but it's hurting Aberdeen. It's hurting Aberdeen massively, and that was shown yesterday because, quite simply, there's been a lot of outcry in the last 24 hours that a lot of the younger players would do a far better job than some of the crop that's in the Aberdeen side. By the way, I said crop just to clarify, in case everybody wondered. Yes, in terms of the support, I'll go into support. Yeah, I'll try not to be too long. In terms of support, 1,700 went up to Hibs yesterday. I still have a train ticket over there that runs out on Wednesday. And that's from a Dunfermline Falkirk game on the 2nd of January that got called off. So, had it not been for Monday against Darvel game, I was actually thinking about going up to Edinburgh yesterday and watching the game.
Good job you didn't, Dennis.
Yes, good job I didn't, because it was utter rubbish. So, 1,700 Red Army paying a good part of £100 to watch their team. Not £100 tickets, but 25 for a ticket, probably 20, 30 for buses or trains, and then food and drink, and whatever else you want to do. That's just under £100. That's a fairly a weekly wage. It's mind baffling to say the least. Yeah, it's a good day away and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you're in football and you support your team. Ultimately, wanting your team to go win matches. And Aberdeen fans will be getting frustrated. I was in the pub last night, as I said to you, and I've seen enough frustrated Aberdeen supporters to run a wee moth right now. That was just how poor it was from Aberdeen yesterday. And finally, Mr. Cormack. Now he's shown a passionate message to the telly and the media yesterday at exactly the same time. Third time lucky. It's an old cliche. It's a saying, and he quite simply has to have this third time lucky. That's all it is, because if he gets a third appointment wrong, the Aberdeen fans will have the knives out. A section already have knives out towards Cormac, but a third will just sharpen it even further.
I watched the game yesterday and I saw the Aberdeen fans that were there, and fair play, really good support again. You've had Dave Cormack coming out on Thursday saying we need an instant reaction, and you're 2-0 down in, say, 15 minutes. And to be honest, watching that game as an outsider, the body language of some of those players was horrendous. There was nothing in them. And they showed it they showed it on Sports Team last night. Yes, Hibs scored 6 goals. They were good. But the amount of time and space that these Hibs players had on the ball was ridiculous. And I've just talked about it. The goals that Aberdeen conceded was an embarrassment. And I don't want to pick on any player in particular, but Anthony Stewart as a captain, that's ridiculous. He is not, for me, he is not a captain of Aberdeen Football Club.
Oh, and you reiterate what every Aberdeen fan says. I'll be brutally honest with you on that front, because he quite simply is not a captain. He's a player that, let's be honest, I don't think he'd be the right management credentials from Jim Goodwin to go and strip Anthony Stewart the captaincy in January. But at exactly the same time, you look at Anthony Stewart and he's quite simply not captain material. Now, a lot of Wycombe fans were hyping Anthony Stewart up when he left Wycombe, but at exactly the same time, I'd like to see Anthony Stewart, and I'd like to give a better observation of Anthony Stewart when he doesn't have the captain duties, because being a captain in comparison to just being a normal player in the field, I think there's a difference between being a captain and a leader. And being a captain is quite simply having an armband around your arm and just quite simply being one of the main guys in the group. Being a leader means you have to be communicative, you need to command, you need to be transparent with your teammates, and he doesn't do that enough as far as the Stuart's concerned. So that's the vitally disappointing thing. And I'd like to give a better observation if he did have the captaincy armband. Now, let's be honest, I'd be absolutely ruthless if I did this, but if I was Aberdeen manager in 5 minutes' time, I'd strip him of it, because it wouldn't be for a disrespectful reason. It would be because it benefits the team and the club. And that's ultimately what managers should be doing. Managers have to make decisions for the sake of their club in terms of trying to get results on the field. If they find one wee bad area, they should rectify it as soon as possible. And Anthony Stewart, quite simply, is a good defender, but doesn't show it through his captaincy. That's the most disappointing thing as far as he's concerned. And I mean, when you look at, obviously, Aberdeen, the lack leaders all over the park. That was shown at Darvel Monday, and it was shown again at Hearts yesterday. The lack leaders all over the park, and the fact that the body language, as you say, was very, very poor. It was a common theme and a recurrent theme of what happened at Monday at Darvel. When Aberdeen are chasing the game with 3 or 4 minutes to go on Monday, they're doing very, very little to try and salvage something out of the game, which was incredibly disappointing. Again on Saturday, a goal down after 2 minutes, and the mentality just changed altogether, and it's extremely disappointing.
It is finished at Amon Vale. It's finished Livingston 0, Hearts 0, and you could have called that after about the first minute, to be fair. It was a pretty poor game. Second half, Hearts huffed and puffed, had a couple of decent chances through Qual. Humphreys had a decent effort. Livingston again, a couple of half chances, but nothing really much in it. Livingston have now basically taken, I think that's 5 points off Hearts this season. Hearts have not beaten Livingston yet this season. Hearts now 10 games unbeaten. I mean, to be honest, Dave, a point, probably not a bad result for either team.
No, go by what you said, no. For Hearts, obviously, it maintains a gap between them and Livingston. Hearts are quite simply the best of the rest right now. I mean, you've seen it yourself, Graham. Sides that went up to Livingston this season, couldn't sell, and over the years as well. The sides that went up to Livingston completely struggled. Livingston are a totally different dynamic at home. They're a good side, either home or away, but they are a totally different dynamic at home because of the way they're set up and the way Martindale implements his own philosophy, his own players. So I think in terms of that, it's not a bad point for Hearts. It's not a bad point for Livingston either because Livingston will be striving for European football, but for Davy Martindale, he's probably went top six first and foremost. So no, it's a good point for both sides.
Yeah, and I'll just give you the team news for the game that starts at 4 o'clock between Dundee United and Celtic. For United, it's Mark Brigate in goal, Liam Smith, Ryan Edwards, and Scott McCann, Kieran Freeman, Craig Sibbald, Dylan Levitt, and Aziz Behic, Ian Harkes, Glenn Middleton, and Stephen Fletcher up front. On the bench for United, it's Charlie Mulgrew, Ross Graham, Emari Niskanen, Peter Pollitt, Arnold Jamie McGrath, Matthew Cudjoe, Jack Newman, and Rory McLeod. For Celtic, it's Joe Hart in goal, Johnson, Carter Vickers, Starfelt, and Taylor, Hatate, McGregor, and Moy, and Abada, Kyogo, and Jota. On the bench for Celtic, it's Haksabanovic, Turnbull, Kobayashi. The new signing O is also on the bench. They've got Awata, Bain, O'Reilly, Maeda, and Forrest. That game kicks off at 4 o'clock. We'll keep you up to date with that. Dave, before we go back to Aberdeen, you would have to imagine that Celtic will probably be too strong for United today.
Yeah, I think they will be. I mean, there's been no chat within the Dundee dressing room by all accounts about that 9-0 scoreline, but I think it still will sting amongst many amongst the United supporters, those within the club, because quite simply it was a sore one to take, and Celtic just ran ragged and all went left to the demise of Jack Ross. But I think today's a totally different ballgame, but also Ange Postecoglou has got a very, very good record at Tannadice. I don't think Dundee, the only goal that Dundee conceded against Celtic was Dylan Levitt last year for United. That was to make sure United got European football. And that's night Celtic still won the league. So Ange Postecoglou's got a really, really good record up at Tannadice, and he'll be keen to keep that going today. If you're going to give me a score prediction game, I'm going to go 3 or 4 Celtic.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I can't disagree with that. I think I'll be about probably 3, to be honest. It might be more. I don't think it'll be 9-0, but it won't be close, I don't think. Although United have improved. Just going back to Aberdeen, I mean, I really felt sorry for Goodwin. You know, obviously, I talked about this before we went live, and, you know, watching Goodwin kind of trudge off the pitch at opposite sides where the Hibs players were warming up or doing a warm down. On a human side, it was so hard to see that. And I was watching Sports Scene results last night, and they flashed up an image of Stephen Glass's record and Jim Goodwin's record. They weren't that different.
What was the difference? Sorry.
I think maybe Goodwin had 3 more wins, and maybe the losses were kind of the same, but they really weren't that different.
No. I mean, I think a lot of Aberdeen fans wanted Jim Goodwin to work because of the debacle of Stephen Glass. Not because of how Stephen Glass set up his Aberdeen sides, but because of the way he was appointed. It did sting with a few Aberdeen fans, just the way in which a rookie manager came in, and it was that disappointed a few Aberdeen fans. So I think a lot of Aberdeen fans wanted Jim Goodwin to work a lot better in comparison to obviously Glass, but I think this tells us a lot of things, but also it tells us that, because Glass, let's be honest, I was not that Glass didn't work, because Glass got some good results. He drew with Rangers. He was very competitive against Celtic. He got some good wins against Hibs and Hearts at Pittodrie. And it's funny, Graham, because apart from Goodwin's record against the Old Firm, a lot of Goodwin's results have been fairly similar as well, which tells you that there's been a lot of similarities between Goodwin and Glass.
I mean, you listened to Dave Cormack after the game, and you said Dave Cormack spoke very passionately, and he did. But they've now had to pay off Jim Goodwin. They've now had to pay off Stephen Glass. Dave Cormack said that it's his decision. They have to get this next one right. I mean, in terms of Aberdeen, how big a call now is this to get this next decision right?
Well, it's the fourth compensation fee that I believe had to go and dish out under the two laws of Cormac, absolutely. And being honest, I think a lot of people were thinking that was maybe the reason why Goodwin was given another game. Let's be honest, they have to get it right. There's no other way about it. As I said, hopefully it's third time lucky for Dave Cormack and co, because this football monitoring board has taken a lot of criticism this week because of the way it's been handled, but at exactly the same time, the people that's been on it. Because it's not just Dave Cormack that's got the criticism. Stephen Gunn, the director of football, has also had a level of criticism aimed his way this week. And to start the game, I didn't understand why Stephen got that level of criticism. But thinking about it now and reflecting on what people have been saying down the line, I can kind of see why people are saying that, because down the line, obviously, Stephen's been in charge of getting players in. He's been in charge of recruitment side of things. Now, Darren Mowbray's got a part to play in that, but on the other hand, Darren Mowbray has taken a couple of gems, and I think his reputation isn't tarnished as much in comparison to Stephen and Dave's. So I think there needs to be a fresh outlook at the club. It's going to be interesting to see how things get approached, and there's a lot of uncertainty about Aberdeen as a whole football club right now. The women's team do not have a manager just now. They've got Gavin Levy running the team, who's like the head of youth academy at the club. And Aberdeen's not had a new manager or a manager permanently since November, when the Otway dismissed Emma Hunter and Gavin Meath. And they've not had anybody ever since, which tells me that the problems at that club are far more rooted than perceived to be. So there's a lot for Dave Cormack to work on, there's a lot for the board to work on, and there's a lot for the board to get focused on and get down to work. If you're going to be honest with me, I think it's Barry Dobson's until the end of the season. I really think it is. I do not think, and I hope he has learned this lesson, I do not think Aberdeen will rush a new appointment now, especially with the way the last few appointments have been rushed.
The difficulty now is there's only 3 days left of the window. I doubt very much that Aberdeen will have a new manager in charge by then. So whoever manager comes in is going to be left with a squad that's there already. And he might not want these guys, but he's going to have to use them, whoever comes in.
Well, this is why I think Barry Robson will get until the end of the season for that. And what you've said is one of those specific reasons, because if you bring in a new manager and they want a different identity, a different philosophy, a different outlook of play and all that kind of stuff, there's going to be a whole transition period again. There was a transition period when Stephen Glass left, and Jim Goodwin came in. There was a transition period. Let's be honest, Jim Goodwin set his stall out early doors. He set his presence out early doors by saying that players are going to go, players are going to leave, that they were given a chance, but because results had continued to deteriorate, they were not going to go any further. And Jim Goodwin set his stall and his presence out very early doors in that front. I do not think Aberdeen will go down that approach again, because I think the fear and the apprehension from Aberdeen's perspective and Dave's perspective is that if they go down that route again, I think they'll find themselves perhaps behind it nothing, where they're going through a transition period again. So this is why I think Barry will get into the end of the season. I don't think Aberdeen will admit it publicly to start with, but I think down the line, if Barry goes against a positive outlook on this side, then I think there'll be. I think Barry will get it until at least Easter time or end of the season, and then obviously see how things go from there on forward.
Obviously, Jim Goodwin's taking a lot of blame. The players quite rightly taking a lot of blame. Dave Cormack's taking a lot of blame. How much blame does Stephen Gunn take on all this, the director of football? Because I've seen a lot of Aberdeen fans saying that he also should be going along with Goodwin and Lee Sharp.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Gunn at Otway does not play the game. He ultimately does not manage the game. But it's probably his way of dealing with things that's probably irritating the Aberdeen fans the most. It's not the fact that he's a bad guy or anything like that. He's a very nice guy, in fact. But it's the fact in which probably the last few managers have been dealt with in terms of McInnes leaving when he did, when Glass came in, when Goodwin came in also. And I mean, I'd like to see more proof in the pudding from Stephen Gunn's perspective before making a justified decision, because Stephen Gunn ultimately is he a guy that works 24/7? Is he a hard worker? Is he a guy that puts his heart and soul into the club? Is he a guy that supports the management's needs? Is he a guy that supports the board's needs? We don't know that. If he does all of that, fair enough. If he doesn't, time for change.
I listened to the radio last night after the game, and one of the pundits, and I would be astonished if this is the case, but one of the pundits had said that after that game yesterday and the fact that Jim Goodwin has been sacked, that on the bus back to Aberdeen, those Aberdeen players will be laughing and joking. Now, I would be astonished if that's the case. And if it is, I would be ashamed if I'm an Aberdeen player.
Well, first and foremost, Graham, you've just been beaten 6-0 by Hibs. If you're laughing and joking and all that, I understand that life's too short and society and all that kind of stuff, but if you're getting beat 6-0 or a defeat of any magnitude against any side, you're laughing and joking in the bus on the way home, then that for me is pure shambles, a pure disgrace, in all honesty, straight away. Now, Jim Goodwin does not go on the team bus, just to clarify. He does not go on the team bus before games, which a lot of Aberdeen fans found as a bit weird. And I do agree with what they're saying on that front. But, I mean, yeah, I find the whole thing very humiliating, very embarrassing. And if players are laughing and joking as perceived, then it tells you that the problems far outweigh what's going on off the park. The main priority will be on the park as well. And I mean, we don't know from the outside looking in, but if you're looking at what Dave Cormack said in interviews and so forth, there does seem to be a mentality, or Dave Cormack kind of hinted it himself, that the players need to do better. And I think, as much as Jim Goodwin has been saying it's not been good enough, is the main factor the players? It maybe is. It maybe is, funnily enough. And I think the proof of the pudding will come later down the line.
You mentioned earlier Aberdeen are at home to St Mirren on Wednesday. Now, we know that the Aberdeen fans, especially at Pittodrie as well, are a really big crowd. What do you think yesterday's performances and result, along with the Derby performance, what do you think the crowd are going to be like on Wednesday against St Mirren? Because that is not going to be an easy game against a very dogged St Mirren side.
Yeah, when I was at the Aberdeen St Johnstone game when Stephen Glass got let go. He was let go on the Saturday after getting beat by Motherwell in the Scottish Cup. And then Aberdeen had a game against St Johnstone on the Tuesday, which Barry Dobson took the team for that game. That was his only game in charge, actually, funnily enough. But when you look at obviously Wednesday, I think Wednesday obviously answers a lot of questions as far as the crowd's concerned, how Robson's concerned. I think Barry Robson will get a good backer, but ultimately he needs to get results alongside that as well. So I think Wednesday's going to be very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how things go.
David, you still with us? Oh, you're here, I think. Are you here? Can you hear me?
Aye, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Aye, no worries. So, Hibernian 6, Aberdeen 0. It was probably, I know I'm on a couple of group chats, and one of the Aberdeen fans has said to me, was that any surprise? I'll be honest, yes, it was. I know that Aberdeen are not in a great place just now, but to go Easter Road, Hibs have not been, they've not been particularly great. And I thought, wrongly, there would be a reaction from Aberdeen, and there wasn't. You know, they're just all over the pitch. Aberdeen players just didn't react. The time and space that they got, there was no pressure on the ball. There was nobody pressing. For me, the fourth goal as well was really, really poor. You know, Kevin Nisbet, yes, it's a slip of the defender, but then if you watch it again, the defender actually stays down for about 10 seconds on the ground. He doesn't get up straight away and try and run back and affect it. He stays on the ground. If that's me, if I've made a mistake, I'm getting straight back up and I'm going to try and win that ball back. I just think the reaction of the Aberdeen players is not great. Wednesday's going to be huge now. They have to get reaction against St Mirren. If they don't, you know, as I said before the World Cup break, Aberdeen were 4 points ahead of Hearts. They're now, I think, 10 points behind. That is an amazing turnaround. It really is. Aberdeen have completely collapsed. But the one thing that I find incredible, if you look at the semi-final in the Viaplay Cup against Rangers, they competed very well. Now, a lot of folk will say it was Rangers. They always compete against Rangers. And yeah, they do, but they competed well. They then go to Tynecastle and get hammered 5-0. They get embarrassed by Darvel. And then yesterday's even worse. To lose 6 goals to a Hibs side that, let's be honest, have not been great is embarrassing. So I think Aberdeen players have got to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror because that was so, so poor. But Hibs play Ross County on Tuesday. That'll be a big game. Ross County, who I said a few weeks ago can't score goals, he scored 3 yesterday. We'll get to that very shortly, but that could be a difficult game for Hibs. And I will say this now as well. We are going to be on, I said this on Friday, but we are on Tuesday night for a transfer deadline day special. We're going to be joined by a few special guests as well. We're on from 10 till 12. The plan will be to give everyone 20 minutes each, but then come back on again because trying to do this with about 10 folk on this is going to be horrendous. So we're going to be kind of trying to cut people's time down, but we'll be bringing them back on again. So we'll have a few special guests on, a few folk that have not been on the show before. We'll have fans of other clubs as well, talk about the players that they need to sign, the positions they need to sign, and anything that happens while we're on air from 10 till 12, we will let you know about it. So join us on Tuesday at 10 till 12 on Indie Live and IndieLive.radio. Myself and Mike will be hosting it as always. So that's Tuesday night. We'll also be back on again on Friday and back on again on Sunday next week as well. So that's Hibs against Aberdeen. Let's now look at Rangers against St Johnstone from Ibrox. We'll also keep you updated as well. The game between United and Celtic kicks off in about 15 minutes' time. So we'll keep you updated on that until 5 o'clock. Rangers against St Johnstone. I'll get Dave's thoughts on this when he comes back on. Any Rangers fans that are watching this show, you can tell me this now. And I know you might not agree, but I'm going to be honest on the show. I've always said that. Rangers won by 2-0. Goals from Tavernier penalty and Glenn Kamara in the 58 minutes. They were the better side, there's no doubt about that. I thought Todd Cantwell had a good debut. He's a good player. I've watched him a few times for Norwich. He's a good player. I thought he gave Rangers a bit of a different dimension going forward. But for me, the biggest talking points are the 3 big calls in the game. Now, anyone that's watching this can let me know what you think. You can be controversial. You can agree. You can disagree. That's what these are all about, opinions. Willie Collum had 3 big decisions to make in this game, and he got every single one of them wrong. Now, for me, I'll get Dave's thoughts on this. The penalty decision. The ball's crossed in from the right-hand side. I'm going to go through them one by one. The ball's crossed in from the right-hand side. The ball has come off the back of Connor Golson and hits James Brown's hand, which for me is not an unnatural position. No Rangers player appeals to claim for it, and the referee gives it. For me, I've said this numerous times before, the handball rule is a joke. It needs to get changed. Something needs to get done because that is not a handball. Now, you might think, looking at it, it's a handball in the rules, but that is not a handball. And as was talked about last night on the TV, that gets given yesterday, that might not get given next week. It might not get given on Wednesday. Although Rangers play Hearts on Wednesday, it might be given. You never know. But it's not a penalty. There's nothing James Brown can do about that. It's not a natural position. For me, that's not a penalty. And if you watch it again, I don't see any Rangers player claiming for that. The handball rule has got to be changed because it's causing so much controversy. I'll be honest, if I am Callum Davidson and he was obviously disappointed, I'd be furious. I would take the fine. I like to think I'm quite honest on this show. I'm not biased anyway, I'm not a Rangers fan, but if that was me, I would be furious in front of that camera. I wouldn't swear, but I'd be raging because that's not a penalty for me. It's a really poor decision from Willie Collum. The red card decision, again, I'll get Dave's thoughts on this as well. There's no point me just talking about it. But the red card decision, again, the red card for Nicky Clark is not a red card. He wins the ball, he follows through, and the follow through, yes, it does catch Ryan Jack, but it's on his shin. It's shin to shin. It's not a red card. Why, for me, why Willie Collum has not been asked to go and look at that, and he took about a minute as well to decide on that. It's not a red card. There is no way that's it. Is it a foul even? I'm not convinced it was. He wins the ball. The follow through catches Ryan Jack, but Ryan Jack gets up quite quickly. It's not a red card for me any day of the week. I'd be raging if that was on one of my Hearts players and somebody got sent off. I'd be furious with that. And I would say, if it was on a Hearts player, I would say that's not a red card. I'm honest enough to admit that. It's not a red card. I think Nicky Clark's been very hard done by there. If you look at the Ryan Jack challenge on Adam Montgomery, that's a red card for me. He goes in late. He's still obviously furious about the challenge that got made on him a few minutes earlier. He goes in like a bull in a china shop, and he is reckless. He goes in, you can see, okay, it's not going to be a high challenge, but he goes in very, very late on Montgomery. It's a very poor challenge. Now, this is where I'm having arguments with myself here, because the Ryan Jack one from Nicky Clark, he doesn't get asked to go look at the monitor. The one that Ryan Jack does on Montgomery, he looks at the monitor and he ends up being the first referee to go to the monitor and not change his mind. What a surprise, it's Willie Collum. But that is a red card offence. He goes in late. You can see the challenge. It's not high, but it is very, very late on his ankle. Now, I'm not saying that Ryan Jack means to do Montgomery, because I don't think he does. But it's a ridiculously poor challenge. He is annoyed after what happened with him a few minutes earlier. He's gone in raging. It's a red card offence. I don't understand how Willie Collum can look at the monitor and say, no, that's a yellow card offence. I'm not buying that. I'm sorry. Willie Collum had 3 decisions to make in that game, and he got all of them wrong, in my opinion. I'll get Dave's thoughts on this when he comes back. But on the game itself, listen, James Tavernier scores his penalty. He always does. It's a good penalty. But if you actually watch the first half as well, at 1-0, St Johnstone have a glorious chance before half-time. Dre Wright is played through. He should score. He goes round the goalkeeper and he trips over his own feet. He has to score. It's a really poor finish, and that would put St Johnstone level. He has to score. Second half, Rangers have a lot of possession, have a few decent chances, but Morelos looked a little bit better yesterday, looked a lot more livelier. He probably should score a couple, to be honest. I think the goalkeeper for St Johnstone has a great game, makes a couple of very good saves. I thought, as I said, I thought Todd Cantwell had a good game for his debut. It is at home against St Johnstone, no disrespect to St Johnstone, but Todd Cantwell played well. And I think Michael Beale said it during the after the game as well. To get Yanis Hadji back on the pitch was very important. I thought he played very well when he came on. He looked like he hadn't been away. Some nice wee touches, some nice wee flicks and tricks. He's a very good player. And you can see that Rangers are getting back to some kind of strength. But they're not going to be enough to stop Celtic. Celtic will win the league. I've said this weeks ago, and I will stick to that. Celtic will win the league. They've got far too much strength and depth. They just signed the boy O as well. So I think Celtic will win the league. They'll win today against United, I would imagine. But that's a big 3 points for Rangers. It does. All you can do when you're Rangers is keep on winning and try and put pressure on Celtic so that if they do drop points, you're there to pick up the points. Rangers have essentially a hard game on Wednesday night, although our record isn't great against Rangers. We've not won for a while. We obviously played the cup final last season and didn't really do very much. We played them this season. We've lost a couple of times. So, yeah, our record against Rangers isn't great. That's something that Robin Nielsen needs to change. But it could be a hard game for Rangers on Wednesday. We're unbeaten in 10 games now. So it could be a potentially difficult game for Rangers. But I think Rangers maybe going forward might have enough to beat us. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. But yeah, it could be a hard game. But I just think Rangers, for me, at the moment, they're unbeaten since Michael Beale came in. But again, I've said this to Michael as well. I don't think they've played that well. They've not had a 90-minute performance. But if you're a Rangers fan, you just want to win games. If you're a Celtic fan, you want to win games. Yes, you want to do it with style, but you have to win. And Rangers are doing that. Wednesday could, and I'm hoping it'll be a big test for them. I think for me, Hearts have to stop Ryan Kent playing. Got to get in his face. We've got to press really hard. And for me, watching the second half of that Livingston game today, I think we could have a secret weapon in this. And that secret weapon is Garang Kuol. I thought when he came on second half today, he looked very lively. He's very, very quick. If we get the ball in behind, he could cause that Rangers defence a lot of problems. You know, Connor Golson, Tavernier especially, he'll be playing down their side, so he could cause them problems. And you've got Lauren Shanklin, who today was playing a lot deeper than I want him to be. But 20 goals a season, I hope he gets 21 and 22 on Wednesday, but it'll be a hard game. So, yeah, a difficult game for Rangers, but I just think that yesterday, those decisions from Willie Collum, I think, are so poor. Now, I'm not someone that's going to get fined for saying this because I'm not a manager. I'm not in front of the camera, although I am on this. But I think too many times it's a Willie Collum show. He wants to make it about himself, and I thought yesterday he did that. Now, again, Rangers fans, if you're watching this, you won't agree, and that's fine. It's about opinions. But I just don't understand how Willie Collum, the penalty decision, I don't think it's a penalty. But the two red cards, I don't know how they are. I don't know how one's a red card and one's not. I really don't agree. I don't agree with it. And how you can go to the monitor for one of them and not go for the other one, I just think that is very poor refereeing. But then I'm not a massive fan of referees anyway. So for me, it's not. For me, the Ryan Jack red card should be a red card. And the red card for Nicky Clark, I think, is very, very harsh. I don't think it's a red card, and I can understand completely. Taking a lot of drinking my juice there. I can understand completely why Callum Davidson's not happy, and for me, I wouldn't be either because they were not red cards, that one. But Rangers winning the game by 2-0, fair play. You know, it's a good win for them. Maybe I shouldn't bring up good win because he's been sacked. But yeah, a massive victory for Rangers. They needed that. I do still expect Celtic to win this game, though. We're about 8 minutes away from kickoff. I will keep you up to date with that game. For anyone that's interested, in England in the FA Cup, it finished Brighton 2, Liverpool 1. I'm really not surprised by that, to be honest, because Liverpool have been absolutely terrible so far. Hopefully, Dave is back with us, I think. Are you back with us, Dave?
Hello, Graham. I am indeed.
Yeah, we have Dave back. So I was just talking about the Rangers St Johnstone game there. Rangers winning the game by 2-0, a James Tavernier penalty and a goal from Glenn Kamara. But I've just said there while you were away that obviously the main talking points were the three big decisions, and I personally thought that Willie Collum got every decision wrong. Now we'll go through them one by one. The penalty decision. The ball comes into the box, it hits off Goldson's back, and it hits James Brown's hands, which I don't think in an unnatural position. No Rangers player claims for it, and Rangers are given a penalty. For me, and I've said this before on the show, the penalty that handball rule needs to change. That for me is not a penalty. Dave, can you hear me? Oh, Dave's away again. You can see we're having technical problems on the show, can't you? But yeah, I'm just gonna try and bring up the league table actually to see. So the league table at the moment, after today's games and before the United Celtic game, Celtic are obviously top on 61 points. Rangers second on 55 points. Hearts are third on 39 points. Livingston on 32 points and fourth. Hibernian in fifth on 30 points. St Mirren in sixth on 30 points. Aberdeen in seventh on 29 points. St Johnstone in eighth on 24 points. And then we've got four teams on 20 points. Motherwell in ninth on 20 points. United on 10th and 20 points. Ross County in 11th on 20 points. And Kilmarnock, bottom of the league, on 20 points. So it's a very tight league in the bottom of the league there. Hopefully we have Dave back. Dave, are you there?
Hi, Graham. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Willie Colm, I'm going to start with him. I did think a question about the Rangers St Johnstone, but I was having a little bit of technical difficulties on my part. Surprise, surprise. But in terms of call, I mean, I was up at Ibrox against Motherwell last weekend, and he was refereeing that game in question. And Colm, I mean, he there was actually a weekend, in case the viewers are wondering, and there was a challenge within. I can't remember who the midfielder was for Motherwell. I think it was Sean Goss, in fact. All these both put a challenge on Sean Goss for Motherwell. And I think had VAR came into play, I think Baldy would have gotten his marching orders. No, it was the other way around. It was the other way around. In fact, Goss put a challenge on Baldy, and had it been the other way around, I think Cole would have banned the shit ahead. But I think because there was no VAR, it's yellow. And there's
You're breaking up on us, Dave. Are you still there?
with VAR, but
I think we're having problems with Dave's
yeah,
connection
I
here. I
was
think, Dave, are you still there?
and yeah, I'm saying I think I watched the Rangers against Johnson highlights just before we came on air at 3 o'clock there, and Nicky Clark sending off. There's no intent, but the studs are showing. Um, um, I think had it not been a red, I think it would have been brought to Willie's attention to go look at the monitor. So I can maybe see why there's an agreement unanimously for a red in Nicky Clark's situation. But the fact that Colm was brought over to the monitor to look at Ryan Jacks and says, nope, play on, it's baffling. And I'd argue that Ryan Jacks' challenge is worse than Nicky Clark's challenge.
That's pretty much exactly what I've said. How you can go on the monitor for one of them and not for the other one, I don't understand that. And Willie Collum, as I've just mentioned, is the only referee now in Scotland to go to the monitor and stick with his original decision. Now, I talked about this before we went off air there, and I don't think, for me, I think the challenge by Nicky Clark on Ryan Jack, I think Nicky Clark wins the ball and it's a follow through, it's shin to shin. I don't think, for me, that's a red card. Now, for me, I don't know why Willie Collum hasn't got the monitor look at that. And then I completely agree with you. I think the challenge from Ryan Jack, he's obviously hit up after what's happened to him a few minutes before. It's late. It's not high, but it's reckless. I don't understand how Colin can look at the monitor and that and still stick with his original decision. I don't get that.
The thing as well, Graham, is it's it's in a it's in an uncompromised area in the park. What I mean by that when I say that is it's not in the St Johnstone attacking area. It's not like St Johnstone on the saying trying to score. It's not like St Johnstone are in a match situation. It's not like it's in the middle of the park. It's not like it's in the centre circle or anything like that. It's in St Johnstone's defensive half where, let's be honest, Rangers are comfortable and there's no need for Ryan Jack to put in that challenge in perspective. Nicky Clark challenge is a different dynamic altogether because ultimately I think Carl Davidson would have given Nicky Clark a bit of a roasted had he just chickened out of the challenge altogether. So I think there's two totally different dynamics to this. So yeah, there's pros and cons for both. But yeah, the Boy Cobb will get a lot more attention and spotlight on him now because he has waved away a VAR possibility. And for me, Carl Davis has every right to be irate, and the whole thing is unfathomable as far as I'm concerned.
I've spoken about this with Michael numerous times before. I don't know if you heard me before, but the handball rule needs to be changed. I, again, don't think that handball is a penalty. I don't know what James Brown can do about that. The ball comes in, it hits off Golson's back and hits Brown's arm. It's not an unnatural position. And no Rangers player claims for that penalty. Again, the handball rule needs to be changed because for me, that's not a penalty.
No, 100%. And ultimately, when you look at scoreline and look at how the game prevailed, it changed the complexion of the game and dimension of the game. And ultimately, one of the big teams has gotten away with another one yet again. Penalty to Rangers, so that's how it proved to be. And obviously, Savager took his penalty very, very well. But you can sense, obviously, you said it yourself, but you can sense they've got a little bit of luck based on that penalty. That it's not a penalty, as you say. I think it's got to be deliberate for me. I made this point to you before that if it hits your side and it's not like you can get your body out of that particular situation, I don't think you should give it. If there's a particular situation where cross comes into the box, player heads it and comes off the player's hand, maybe try like in this type of situation, maybe a different story. If you can't get your hand away like this, then totally different dynamic altogether. So I find the whole thing very frustrating from a purist football point of perspective. And again, it's another poor decision from our referees indeed.
We talk about the big decisions in the game. We talk about the VR decision, but one big decision in that game was when St Johnstone went down to 10 men, and at 1-0 down, Dre Wright is through on goal, and he goes round the goalkeeper and basically trips up. That was a golden opportunity for St Johnstone to get level going into half-time.
Yeah, massively. I was actually having a look at that this morning, and ultimately, when you go and play against sides in Glasgow, you need to be taking your chances and you need to be scoring. And I mean, if you could ask me about Rangers first and foremost, the only disappointment from their point of view was perhaps not scoring more, but for St Johnstone as well. They had that terrific chance and it was only shot. Well, they had a shot on target. But apart from that, they very rarely threatened Rangers. So I think Carl Davidson will have a tinge of disappointment there. I mean, Davidson actually clapped when Wright missed it, but he clapped in terms of it was a good opportunity in terms of the product and the play. But I think he'll be a little bit disappointed with the chance indeed, yeah.
It has kicked off at Tannadice, obviously, just a few seconds into the game. Celtic on the net trying to start an attack here, but yeah, still obviously very early in the game, still 0-0 so far. But in terms of Rangers, Todd Cantwell made his debut from Norwich. Again, I thought he had a decent debut.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very accomplished on the ball, very astute on the ball, calm and composed on the ball, and just every attribute that you ask for in the midfielder. I mean, it was the right game to put him in because St Johnstone, article side, but the other side that can play a high press, and the other side that can play test, ask questions of you. And I think Paul Cartwell stood up to it very, very well. Now, whenever they play a sides for an old firm team in particular, they always have that pressure because of the magnitude and the stature of the clubs. But, I mean, for Todd Cartwell, I read his interview through the week because I go into everybody's newspapers, and I found his newspaper interviews very intriguing because he was obviously speaking about the fact that he did a lot of charity and community work in the Norwich area or the Kent area in England. And I think he's a real down-to-earth guy. Also, he puts a lot of hard work in. I think for Rangers' sake, I think it's a really good sign, but also I think it's a good deal for us because he was falling out of favour a little bit in Norwich, but he's coming to the Rangers. He's going at a Rangers side that are very astute in terms of the midfield area. They've got a lot of quality in the midfield. Also, Michael Beale will be looking for players in the midfield areas to go and score goals and go and get into good positions. And that's exactly what Todd Cantwell provides. So, good performance yesterday, and he'll be continue that moving forward.
We are just about 2 minutes into the game at Tannadice, and after 40 seconds, Celtic probably should be ahead. The ball played through on the right-hand side of the box for Kyogo, and he shoots just over. But already, Celtic, as you'd expect, starting to dominate this game. And I do already feel this early in the game, it's only a matter of time before Celtic score.
Well, I'm trying to remember here, Graham, but it was relatively early on they scored the first goal in the corresponding subsequent back in August. I think it was after 5 or 6 minutes, actually, it went open the scoring. And anytime on the large post call, because I've seen a few Dundee Celtic games in the flesh over the last few years, and any games I've seen, Celtic have always seemed to score early, and then that's obviously took the stuff out of Dundee United, and I think that's their idea again. So I can see this being a comfortable afternoon. I think if it's to be otherwise, then Dundee United will have to be very astute and obviously set up in the right way possible. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all evolves later on in the game.
In terms of Rangers, they have got a massive game on Wednesday. They come to Tynecastle. Now, Hearts don't have a particularly great record against Rangers. We all know that. How big a game could that be in terms of the title race?
Yeah, I think it's massive. Michael Beale's passed all his check marks so far. Pittodrie, Dingwall, Hibs, Paradise, McDermott Park. Yesterday, even although they had to ride a look at times. But you could sense and argue that this is a totally different game. Not in terms of the occasion or the fact that obviously Hearts are the best of the rest. It's because Tynecastle's a hostile atmosphere, and Tynecastle is a totally different animal to the rest of Scottish football. Pittodrie's is Red Shed. Hibs have their own fan base. And United can be loud and proud at times. It's nowhere near Hearts. It's nowhere near Hearts' level, where because of the size of Tynecastle, the fans are on you pretty quickly, and obviously there's pressure from the one goal. So I don't think it's anything. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good. I think it's going to be a different ball game altogether on Wednesday. And I think when you look at it, I mean, there'll be no pressure. I don't think there'll be any immediate pressure such on Hearts, but I think at exactly the same time, if you're Rangers, you're looking at this and saying it's the biggest test of Michael Beale's Rangers spell so far. Because Michael Beale has won games in different ways. He's won games by not being convincing. He's won games by being rubbish. He's won games for being behind. There's been a couple of games in which they've played very, very well, and they've still only won by a couple of goals. They've won games in different ways, Rangers, since Beale's took over. And don't get me wrong, Rangers fans would sacrifice that every day of the week to the disarray that they were seeing under Van Bronckhorst. But at exactly the same time, they want to have a Rangers side that can be dogged, but a Rangers side as well that can go and knock teams for 3 and 4. Now, if Rangers go and do that Wednesday, Robbie Nielsen and Emma will be extremely disappointed and extremely irate. But I think Rangers are due a big performance in terms of beating a side by 2 or 3 goals. It won't happen on Wednesday. I don't think it'll happen on Wednesday. I think if any side wins between Hearts and Rangers, there'll be one goal in it. But I mean, for Beale, this is the biggest test of his credentials so far, because he's in a lot of away games where they've been tested, but they're nowhere near the dimension and the magnitude of Hearts away. And if you can beat Hearts at Tynecastle, great. Also, this is massive in terms of the title race. And Michael Beale knows that he can't afford any further slip-ups in the season.
Do you see Michael Beale being busy in the transfer window the next few days?
It's hard to tell. He's got his number one priority. You could argue in Todd Cantwell. That was one that was in the surroundings for a while. It was in the boundaries for a while. Now a lot of people were obviously speaking about it. That seemed to maybe bringing a striker, possibly. But Michael Beale seems like the type of guy. I don't know if it's because of finances or things like with Michael Beale's control, but he seems like the type of guy in the public domain that looks quite calm about things. He looks like the type of guy that's quite settled, and he looks like the type of guy that he just wants things to be natural his own way. And I think that's how he's handling it so far. So it looks like from the outside looking in, like there's no immediate panic as far as Beale's concerned.
Yeah, we're 7 minutes into the game at Tannadice. It's still United 0, Celtic 0, but probably as you'd expect, it is all Celtic possession. Jota's looking very dangerous. Kyogo's picking up some good paces. I really have to say it's a matter of time before Celtic score already. But in terms of St Johnstone, they're not going to be defined by the results at Ibrox or Celtic Park. They've got a big game against Motherwell now on Wednesday, but they don't have Nicky Clark. How big a blow is that going to be for them?
Yeah, a massive blow, because not just for St Johnstone on the park, but also because of the league table and how it's surrounded. Now, I'm surprised St Johnstone haven't phoned me yet, Graham, because the last time I seen St Johnstone win, I was there. And that was that 7 games ago? I think it was 7 games ago, the last time they won. And that was about Ross County, obviously, who won a bit of disarray prior to getting a good win yesterday. And but a massive miss indeed, because St Johnstone are on the hunt for a striker. Zach Runnan's been quoted. Jordan White was touted, but Jordan White was a little bit off the mark. Zach Runnan looks like having a bit more of a meaning to it. It looks like there's going to be a bit more purpose behind Zach Runnan. I think Zach Runnan would suit the way St Johnstone play, would suit a club of St Johnstone's stature, in all honesty. And I think also when you look at everything, I mean, there's a lot of things that surround St Johnstone that's good about them that involves Nicky Clark, and it's going to be a massive miss. But it's going to be an interesting game with them on Wednesday. Obviously, Kilmarnock will be looking to get a much needed result. Also with St Johnstone, because if St Johnstone win, they can kind of go and pull clear the chasing pack. So, big game for both sides on Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, and talking of Kilmarnock, they went to Dingwall yesterday and were beaten by 3-0 by Ross County. Ross County said they couldn't score to save themselves, and they scored 3 yesterday. Eamon Brophy, Jordan White, and Jan Danda with the goals. Eamon Brophy, who I will admit didn't even realise had signed for Ross County until yesterday. That is, from Malky Mackay's side, start with them first, that is a huge victory for Ross County.
Yeah, what I will say, Eamon Brophy, is I think it's a good move for Eamon Brophy joining Ross County, because you want players that want to play, you want players with a bit of hunger, you want players with a bit of attitude. Yeah, Eamon Brophy has been a little bit underwhelming. I know he's injuries and all that, but he has been a little bit underwhelming in recent years, especially after doing very, very well in terms of getting a Scotland Cup back in 2019. And Ross County was the type of club to try and go and get some goals, try and get the team up the league table, and try and get some much needed enthusiasm and energy back into his game, and ultimately help Ross County in what was their current predicament. And it was a huge win for Ross County in terms of jumping above Kilmarnock yesterday. So gratitude and hats off to Matthew Mackay-Cole for that. But in terms of Brophy, I think it's a good move in terms of also the fact that County will play 2 up top, and that probably suits Brophy in all honesty. But ultimately, it helps like Sir Jordan White as well, because Jordan White has been getting a lot. He's been getting a lot of good service, but there's been very little pressure on him because of the lack of attacking impetus in the county team. So having somebody like Brophy will help Jordan White, I think, and I think Ross County will have a lot more purpose about their play in the second half of the season. Does it help them moving forward? I think it will. I think Ross County will have a bit more attitude about their game. I think they'll have a lot more battle and guilt about their game, and it's up to them to go and show more doggedness in the middle of the park, and return for that, try to get more goals in the forward areas to all get some much needed results.
I'm just trying to see if there's any post-match comments from either Robin Nielsen or David Martindale after today's game, and I don't see any at the moment. Nothing at the moment. In terms of Kilmarnock, I've just talked before you came on there about the fact that you've now got 4 teams on 20 points. You've got Motherwell United, Ross County, and Kilmarnock. How big a worry is it going to be for Derek McInnes that, again, it's another poor defeat at the bottom of the league, and again, they just don't seem to be able to score goals, and they don't seem to stop them going at the other end?
Yeah, it's actually a funny theme about the 4 bottom teams at the Cinch Premiership, because they're all 4 teams that get a sense of positivity or a sense of praise in certain stages. And Kilmarnock are no immune to that, because look at the way Kilmarnock played against Celtic. They got so much praise for the way they played. They got so much praise for their discipline, how they caged Celtic again, how they made things tough for Ange Postecoglou's side. At exactly the same time as well, the fact that this Premiership is so competitive, it allows the likes of Kilmarnock to be absolutely brilliant one week and then go a fortnight later and be absolutely not atrocious, but be a team that's underwhelming and struggling to obviously get any energy or enthusiasm whatsoever. So I think the whole thing in that regard is very disappointing, and I think Kilmarnock have a lot of proving to do because they've had a tough couple of weeks. They had last weekend when they only just beat the Barton 1-0. They needed a late winner from Jordan Jones to see off week 2 the Barton. The Barton had a good side, but Kilmarnock should have had enough quality to get that over the line and be professional and have the game more comfortable than they did. And then yesterday, underwhelming, as we've said. And there will be a pressure on Derek McInnes now. Now he's an experienced manager, knows his way around the Premiership, but I think there will be a pressure on now. Had they got beaten by Hearts or something, you could maybe I don't think there'd have been the same animosity or there'd have been the same negativity. But I think now there's a lot more apprehension, and I think yesterday increases the pressure massively on Derek McInnes after that.
We had a comment on Friday. I don't know if you were on or not on Friday when this comment made in, but we had a Kilmarnock fan on who basically said that they would rather have the Darvel manager than Derek McInnes. Do you think McInnes is under pressure?
I think he is to an extent, funnily enough, because when you look at McInnes, I mean, he is an experienced manager, but I think he's kind of papered over the cracks with Kilmarnock to an extent. Now, Kilmarnock are very rigid and they're very resolute and they're very vigorous in terms of what to do with budgets and so forth. But exactly the same time, Derek McInnes has worked under tight budget and worked miracles besides Aberdeen to an extent, St Johnstone massively. And that's where a lot of experience should come in and work very, very wisely, to say the least. So I think he is under a bit of pressure. Is there better managers out there that could do a better job? You could argue, yes, like Mick Kennedy, for example, like that guy said, because he's doing a wonderful job at Darvel, irrespective of the fact he could beat Arthur Lee yesterday. But there is guys out there in the game that could do better jobs in terms of making them more tough to beat, making them colossal both boxes. Derek McInnes was good at being colossal both boxes at Aberdeen, and this will be the disappointing thing, that they went from being colossal both boxes over a good part of just under a decade to now having a side that look jaded and rusty and all over the place.
15 minutes gone at Tannadice. It's still done United 0, Celtic 0, but United had a chance there. A ball in from a free kick from the left-hand side, a bit of head tennis in the box, and Stephen Fletcher heads just over Joe Hart's crossbar. So United posing a bit of a threat here so far, but still 0-0. Celtic, as you'd expect, Dave, dominating possession, but United are showing a lot more steel than they did in that 9-0 game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Liam Fox has done tremendously well in terms of getting United a lot more organised. I mean, United under Jack Ross, they had a good identity because that was definitely seen when they beat us at Alkmaar 1-0 before that went into absolute tatters the following week. And I mean, when you look at Dundee United, they obviously had a good unit to work with. But at exactly the same time, when you look at how they've performed under Liam Fox, they look a lot more organised, as you say, but also on the other hand, they look like a side that don't give a lot away, and that's exactly how it's proven to be. I mean, they're back to their old best now. They're not Tam Courts level just yet, but on the other hand, they do have players that can go pretty good levels of performances now. If we want to look at the differences, the comparisons and the reflections between Jack and Liam, I think Jack was trying to be a bit more open and all that. Well, Liam's a bit more compact, both on and off the ball. And I think that's the difference. And I think that's why Dundee United have had an improvement of late.
Just going back to Ross County, I'm just looking at the fixtures they actually play Hibs on Tuesday in Dingwall. Obviously, we know that Hibs are off the back of a fantastic victory against Aberdeen. Ross County now have started to score goals again. Interesting game that on Tuesday for both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ross County will be keen to build the momentum after a fantastic win yesterday over Kilmarnock. And it's another home game for Ross County as well. So that could be massive in terms of the dimension of their season, massive in terms of how everything could end up coming when we approach like the Scottish Cup period, for example. So I think that's massive. And the good thing for Ross County, although it isn't really that good, is the fact that they won't know the Scottish Cup to really focus on. So there's an opportunity for some to recharge the batteries as well. But at exactly the same time, I think they've learned a lot of lessons from the Hamilton game in particular, because that was vitally disappointing as far as Staggies were concerned. So I think Tuesday will be an interesting one. But then they're up against the Hibs side that will have confidence within themselves after a fantastic win yesterday. And for Hibs, if they want to be serious about their top six ambitions, with all due respect, to go to Dingwall and winning, there was an accomplished and composed performance in the subsequent fixture at Easter Road earlier in the season. And more of the same will be needed on Tuesday at Dingwall.
Yeah, again, I mentioned the fact that we are going to be on Tuesday night from 10 till 12 for our transfer deadline day special. Would you imagine that Ross County will be busy come Tuesday night?
I still think they need a midfielder. I think they need one more side, but that would be it for me.
What about Kilmarnock?
I think Kilmarnock are vastly required on the loan market for some odd reason. I don't know why, but Kilmarnock are vastly looking at the loan market. They're not looking elsewhere. All the sides they've taken, apart from the guy for sale, have all been in the loan market. Jordan Jones was permanent as well, but no, he might be. No, Jordan Jones was a loan actually. So when you look at everything in great detail, I think they need a few more permanent signings, because if not, you're going to find yourself in a transition period again come the end of the season.
Kilmarnock, we don't obviously know how this game is going to go this afternoon. It's still United 0, Celtic 0 so far, but Kilmarnock are at home to United on Wednesday. How big a lift will Kilmarnock need after that performance and result yesterday?
Massive. I mean, I think the good thing from Kilmarnock's point of view will be the fact that they have a game so soon, because when you have as poor performance as you did yesterday, the last thing you want is to be waiting 7 days, and it's maybe a good thing to go and work on things, but on the other hand as well, you want to try and get some much needed game time into players in order to try and reignite your season, or to reignite what's been a dire period. So I think it's a big game for Kilmarnock. It's a big game for Dundee United as well. I think Kilmarnock will have a tinge of advantage because Dundee United are in action right now, and the timings and the timescales and so forth, because it is hard for sides to play within a 72-hour period. Dundee United will have to do an abundance of recovery prior to Wednesday. Kilmarnock will have had a long bus journey after last night, but I doubt there have been after you travel 4 or 5 hours on a bus, Graham, there's usually beers and vodkas and wines. I don't think there'll be that on the command team. But sort of then looking at Ross County, looking at Dundee United, looking at homework, looking at how to obviously penetrate United, how to get to good areas. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game on Wednesday, and Kilmarnock will hold the upper hand, having won the Premier Sports Cup early in the season. So it's going to be an interesting game, and then they play each other a week on Saturday in the Scottish Cup. So yeah, Kilmarnock and United will be familiar with each other, definitely.
Let's go to Paisley for the final game that was played yesterday. St Mirren beat Motherwell by 1-0. St Mirren's incredible home record continues. The only team to beat them this season, ironically, was Motherwell. Curtis main score after 60 minutes. And yet again, another impressive result for St Mirren, who again, they're in the top 6.
Absolutely. Motherwell are doing. St Mirren's are doing very, very well just now. I mean, as I was saying to you about Motherwell, I was up watching it. I put up Pro last weekend, and it was quite nip and tuck in terms of the performance and the display and everything. It was quite nip and tuck. And then the guy Mandron did very, very well in terms of taking his 2 goals. He took them very, very well. And I mean, yeah, I think that's the good thing about it. I mean, St Mirren show why they're a good side this year. They've got a similar identity to what Stephen Robinson implemented, ironically, at Motherwell. And I mean, when you look at the way the Motherwell play and the way St Mirren play, St Mirren also play in the front foot to get to some very, very good areas, and they get the likes of Young Curtis made at the game a lot, and they also get a lot of joy through that. Curtis Maid's on a very, very good run of form this year, scoring a lot of vital goals. So is a younger's getting into some very, very good areas, and also scoring goals as well. So I think there's been some impressive performances, and one may that continue as far as both of them are concerned. So I think there's a tinge of positivity as far as everybody's concerned, and one may that continue.
Looking at the stats for yesterday, St Mirren had 2 shots on target, so did Motherwell. St Mirren had 4 shots off target. Motherwell had 2. Motherwell had more possession, but again, possession stats mean very little. You've got to do something with it. I know that there's a few Motherwell fans are not overly convinced with Stevie Hamill. Again, they're one of the teams that are on 20 points just now. How worrying will Motherwell forms be just now?
Yeah, a bit worried. Well, did I maybe hype up Motherwell far too much last week in the papers, because I went and made the point that it was their first win since October, and they got beat last weekend, and there'd been an apprehension. I mentioned apprehension in my report last week. There maybe is an apprehension now, because they're ninth and they're a little bit clear, but not that clear, because obviously there's only a point or no points between 4 of the sides in the league, and I think Motherwell have to be worried. They're not scoring goals at the right end. They're conceding goals at the other end. I don't think, because being honest, I'd have gave you a proper answer, but last week had both had a bit more impetus in the final third, because Motherwell defensively had a quiet afternoon last week. But Motherwell do seem all over the place defensively. That's evident with the goals they've conceded this season, and it's not improving by any stretch of imagination either. The forward areas, they're looking to strengthen their either. They also took in Mikael Mandron. They took in the guy from Japan or South Korea. I think it's either of those, and they're looking to improve in that regard. But I think Motherwell are a little bit underwhelming, because they've got arguably a Scotland goalkeeper, William Kelly. Defensively, they look like they've got a lot of good players like Ricky Lamy and Paul McGinn, and players that have been there and done it and are experienced enough. I've seen the boy Marcus Johnson, that's Hove Rangers this season. He's back on loan. He's back at Motherwell permanently, and he's a decent enough player, and I think he will break through at Motherwell. But that just shows you where Motherwell are at just now, that they're relying on a little bit of their experience to keep them going. So yeah, if a straight January transfer window for Stephen Hamill, and I think they'll be looking for a number of changes and a number of players prior to the window closing. I still think they're 3 or 4 players where they want to be.
What I will say is, and I don't know if you've seen this, Motherwell were denied a Stonewall penalty. Charles Dunn clearly pulls back Ricky Lamy in the box. VAR obviously looks at it, because they look at everything and decide that that's not a penalty. Again, for me, a ridiculous decision. That should have been a penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. I just find the whole thing completely baffling. Absolute definite penalty. That's the situation Scottish football's in right now. They need to look at the refereeing decisions. We need to look at the handball, and there's very little we can say.
In terms of St Mirren, it's another big win. Again, somebody that probably doesn't get a lot of credit is Curtis Main, but he's scoring goals.
Absolutely, he is. I think he suits the way Robinson plays. There's obviously been coaches and managers such as Aberdeen, such as England, clubs in England, which has not worked out for Curtis Main for one reason or another. But he's came into St Mirren and made it his own, essentially. He knows the Scottish game inside out now. He's experienced enough within the Scottish game to know inside out. Also, he's getting goals at the right moments. But there is going to be a sense of reliance on him, especially with the injuries that they picked up yesterday. I think he came off injured, and came off injured as well. I can't remember who it was, but there might be a reliance on Curtis Main, especially short term, because they've had to put Brophy out of loan, and they had to put, I'll get his name for you, but they had to put a striker out of loan to Brophy as well, because it was to clean up funds for, obviously, because the funds funds surrounding the club are a little bit bleak just now, considering, which I find a little bit surprising, considering that even takes account Goodwin going to Aberdeen and the money they got for the players, selling players. So that just tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, I just get the feeling that St need to get a bit more balance about their play. That would be the only criticism of me. For me, sorry. And if they can do that, they'll be in a really good position. They're doing well so far. I think Stephen Robinson maybe needs to start a striker. Needs to be pleading with the board to try and get a striker before the window shuts. I think the loan market will be best suited as far as St Mirren's because I can't see it being anybody permanent, especially with the strikers. The strikers going down to over the last week.
It was Jamie McGrath that St Mirren lost, wasn't it? He was a big miss.
McGrath, that's what it was. McGrath, yeah, McGrath. Sorry.
I said this to James and Michael on Friday. I don't know if you were watching or listening, but I said this to them on Friday. It wasn't that long ago that Tony Fitzpatrick said that St Mirren could be a top 6 club, and he was laughed at. There is no reason that this season they could be a top club.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot more of the fundamentals and the foundations that you look for in a football team this season. I mean, in the last few seasons, they've had very little of that. I mean, they've had good credentials, they've had good possibilities, they've had good potential. But I think they've got a bit of everything this season. They've got a good blend. They know how to be dogged. They know how to score goals. Curtis Baines obviously good forwards we've touched upon. And they could do everything right about them. And they tick a lot of boxes first. Jim Goodwin was quite open, but conceded too many soft goals, and that was a lot of St Mirren fans. When you ask any St Mirren fans, that's what they thought about Goodwin. They're like too soft at the back, and it was exactly the same. Part of that when Oren Kearney was in charge as well. So when you look at St Mirren, they've lacked the foundation and they've lacked the fundamentals over the last few years. This year, I think they've got everything you need in order to be a top 6 side, and that can only be a good thing for the club.
If you look at that bottom 4, Dundee United, Motherwell, Ross County, Kilmarnock, who do you think looks in the most trouble so far?
I would say Kilmarnock. I think Dundee United have a good core of players that could kind of see them over the line with a bit of quality. I still think there's proving the pudding regarding all 4 sides, but I think Ross County will be resurgent following Eamon Brophy coming back to the club. And also Motherwell. I just have a sense. I think it's between Kilmarnock and Motherwell for me. Not because of the fact that they're both shipping goals, they're both conceding silly goals. It's because they lack a blend across the park. They don't score, but subsequently they concede too many at the other end as well. And for me, that needs rectified as soon as possible.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Half an hour played at Tannadice. It's still Dundee United 0, Celtic 0. Again, Celtic creating quite a few chances, but United defending very well. A long way to go in this game, but at the moment, you do think that Celtic will score, but United are causing problems. But we have just under half an hour to go. We've talked about all the games in the Premiership. Let's look at the Championship. The big game yesterday, Dave, was at Dens Park between Dundee and Queen's Park. Dundee running out winners by 3-0 to go a point behind Queen's Park. How big a win is that for Gary Bowyer's side?
Massive, because if you asked everybody in the predictions or asked everybody who's a betting man, who do you think is going to win? And not a lot of people would have said Dundee. A lot of people would have said draw or Queen's Park, or they probably would have not even gave Dundee a fighting chance and hope. So for Dundee, it's the fact they scored 3 goals, also the fact they keep a clean sheet, and that's a very good thing. I think Gary Bowyer started to get his own signings out, and I think that's proven to be a positive thing because Gary Bowyer struck a very frustrating figure in the early part of the January transfer window when he just quite simply wasn't getting players to come through the door at Paradise. But now I think he's starting to get his own players in. The guy from Colchester, he by all accounts had a good game. Ali Maguire offers a little bit of stability defensively for Dundee. He's obviously a loan at Dundee for Motherwell. A lot of Motherwell fans with what it calls about Barry Maguire, but obviously maybe just needs a bit more maturity and development development within himself. So that's obviously a fairly positive one from Barry Maguire's point of view. Midfield wise, they're obviously doing very, very well. Paul McMillan obviously scored yesterday for a penalty spot. I think if Dundee have any priority, it's Zach Robinson, and there might be something that answers a lot of questions regarding Zach running. It might be a case of Zach running goes to St Johnstone, and then Zach Robinson comes in from Wimbledon on a permanent deal. And Zach Robinson, there was a tinge of disappointment when Robinson left the club to go back to Wimbledon because Robinson did have a good loan spell at Dundee, and I think Dundee supporters would be over the moon if Robinson came back to the club in a permanent deal. So for me, that would be a bit of a priority, just trying to get a striker. Because the thing for me, Graham, maybe my answers have been maybe my questions have been answered a little bit yesterday. The problem that Dundee fans had, and the problem that a lot of people were looking at when they were speaking about Dundee, was the fact that they weren't scoring goals, and that was the issue prior to yesterday. But the fact that Jakubiak's been scoring, the fact that Williamson's scoring, and also Ryan Sweeney, defence player's been scoring as well, is only a good thing. Jakubiak, he also had his injury, but there's obviously quality in Jakubiak, and as I say, I think Dundee still need to get somebody to replace Running, because if his impending departure to St Johnstone becomes a formality, but Jakubiak, he's obviously shown he can score big games, and I think that's a good thing, because he obviously came on as well, Jakubiak. So when you look at Dundee's scoring capacity, other teams, they've got players there, but I still think that Gary Boyer could strengthen massively. Midfield-wise, they've got a lot there. Midfield-wise, I think they're absolutely settled. Cameron, McCowan, Mulligan when he comes back, Mark Sanderson, they can offer so much McGowan as well. They were missing, let's not forget this game, they were missing 5 players yesterday that could easily stroll their way into this Dundee side. So yeah, I still think that Dundee need to add a striker. And I think Zach Robertson's on top of the shopping list. Also, I think Gary Boyer will have other ideas in case that doesn't go through.
I'm going off on a little tangent here. I'll come back to the championship in a second, but just because it's Dundee, it's brought into my head what I saw earlier on. Now, this relates to Aberdeen. Now, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I saw earlier on this afternoon that Charlie Adam has thrown his hat in the ring for the Aberdeen job. Now, people talking about Aberdeen need an experienced manager. Surely, to goodness, Charlie Adam cannot get the Aberdeen job.
I'll be serious when I answer this. It'd be too big of a jump for Charlie. There's no getting away about it. For me, if Charlie Adam wants to, a lot of people look at parallels to Tom Coates and Stephen Glass and who else we speak about here, guys that have been there and done it, but I think Charlie Adam is putting his name in for the ring for the Aberdeen manager's job because, quite simply, he's looked at that and went, I've played the game at a good level, I know the game inside out, I've got a good knowledge of the game, I've played in Scottish football, I've played in English football, I know the markets in both of those leagues, I know the markets in both of those countries, and he's looked at that and went, I could be a good candidate for Aberdeen, especially with the candidates that Aberdeen have had in the past. But from an Aberdeen manager's perspective, I think Dave Clark needs to appoint somebody that's a little bit left field, take a little bit of a gamble. Stephen Glass was a little bit of a familiar face considering he used to play with the club, and Joe Goodwin was a familiar face having been up against Aberdeen with St Mirren. So there was a sense of familiarity there. That there maybe isn't with Charlie Adam, because Charlie Adam does know the Scottish and English game. But at exactly the same time, he's very experienced in management circles. He's the loans manager at Burnley. That's not a management gig. That's all way looking at players that's within your club and saying, like, you're going to want to Scotland, or you're going to want League Two, or you're going to want the Conference League in England. That's not managing a team. So I think there's interesting concepts there. He has helped David Moyes at West Ham. When West Ham had their training camp at St Andrews in the summer, he was photographed as being at St Andrews with West Ham and David Moyes. And he obviously will get a lot of experience from working with a good manager in Moisey. But at exactly the same time, for me, he needs to take a job in the Scottish Championship or he needs a job in the Conference League in England to get him started. I'm not a big believer of just going into a management gig straight away, such a job as big as Aberdeen. Had Hearts been in a precarious position, Graham, and you weren't happy with Robbie Nielsen and went for a new manager, Charlie Adam came up, or Stephen Presley came up, even just to give you an example, I don't think he'd be too pleased.
See, this was my thought about Ian Cathro at the time as well. I thought that job was too big for him, and I said at the time he should have been in a lower league side, learning his trade first before he got the Hearts job. He was thrown into a job that was far, far too big for him. And I do agree. I think that would be exactly the same for Charlie Adam. Aberdeen is no matter what anyone says, Aberdeen is a massive, massive club. You cannot have Charlie Adam in charge of that side. Not at the moment, anyway. No chance.
Yeah, no. I think a lot of people are saying Aberdeen the experienced head, and 100% they do. Now, Jim Goodman was experienced, but can't be honest with you, Graham, and say maybe it was too big a job for Jim Goodman, because that's telling in the results, which means you do need somebody that knows the game very well to take a job of that magnitude. Now, a lot of people argue and say Robbie Nielsen came at the Hearts when he was a young manager and so forth. But at exactly the same time, Robbie Nielsen and Tam Courts have went into jobs at Hearts respectively, because they've been within the systems at clubs in terms of working with under 18s or working with under 20s, and they know the club inside out because they've worked within the curriculum within the club, they've worked within the structure in the club, and they know what the club's all about. There's guys that are trying to shoehorn their way into jobs that quite simply have no experience. And Charlie Adam falls at that bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back to the Championship, I'll go back to Queen's Park in a second, but on Friday night, Ayr United beat Cove Rangers by 5-0. Dipo Akinyemi surprisingly didn't score. But if we just look back on Cove Rangers' last few games, they've lost 5-0 to Ayr on Friday. They drew 2-2 with Cove. They lost 6-0 to Queen's Park, and they've lost 6-1 to Inverness Cali Thistle. Paul Hartley's come back to Scotland, and he's had a difficult start so far, Dave.
Yeah. If there's any Falkirk or Hartlepool fans listening to this, they're going, oh, shut up. Just, we know what's speaking with Paul Hartley, because let's be honest, it was two disastrous regimes at Hartlepool and Falkirk respectively. And I've had a look at Cove's social media accounts since Friday, and even since Hartley took the job, and there's Hartlepool and Falkirk fans going, let's hope this is an absolute missile. It's turning out that way so far. And what's not helping, and we'll get on to it, of course, Graham, what's not helping is Arbroath and Hamilton have picked up, especially Hamilton, because they're undefeated and free now. And it's not like they've had three victories where they've beaten sides round about them. They've picked up 3 victories against sides high up in the Championship. So that's still going. And then Arbroath had a good one yesterday, which we'll get on to, of course. But, yeah, when you look at, obviously, the whole thing surrounding it, it doesn't make for very good reading at all. I mean, the fact that Cove are not they're underwhelming, but the fact that they're getting very, very little in the forward areas, they're all over the place defensively. McIntyre left a poor notion amongst the players. What I mean by that is the whole environment and the whole atmosphere within the group didn't look like a good one. And players were looking to go on the transfer list, players were looking to leave whilst McIntyre was in charge. And you get the feeling that one poor management appointment can set your club back a little. Hearts is a great example of that. Ian Cathro, and I wouldn't say Daniel Stendhal, but I'd say Ian Cathro and Craig Levine pushed Hearts back a couple of years. They're back now, they're well run now, but they were in a bad way under Cathro and Levine in particular. Hibs looked like going that way. They were like that when Terry Butcher was in charge at Hibs, setting them back quite a few years. Aberdeen, there's a lot of Aberdeen fans saying Stephen Glass is going to hold them back a couple of years. It looks like that's definitely the case because Jim Goodwin obviously hasn't improved things at the club. you get the feel that could be the case with Cove. One bad management appointment could derail a club's progress. And that's the thing. McIntyre did get some good results over Dundee and Queen's Park. But on the whole, if you ask a Cove fan, they were absolutely delighted when they found out that McIntyre went. And Hartley has a lot of bits and pieces to sort out in the big jigsaw to puzzle, a big puzzle to fix, because, and I think he is starting to fix it because he's taken players from full-time football who quite simply are going to be play part-time, well, they'll be full-time Rangers, but they're playing part-time football, such as Tony Weston, who's all over for Rangers on my hand, but we've got Jason Naismith, and we've also got Scott Fox, who have been in full-time environments over the years and can provide that experience, but at exactly the same time, they're coming into a Cove side that are very precarious, and there's a lot to sort out with Cove right now. In the Scottish Cup on Tuesday, for me, that answers a part of the question to see where they're at. But it's the week form where it all matters. Cove playing at Brough in 4 weeks' time, and for me, that's a massive 6-pointer regarding both sides.
I'm just looking at the United Celtic game here. I'm not sure Celtic will get a penalty here. If they do, I'm not convinced it's a penalty. Briggy comes out. He tries to punch the ball and he seems to catch Kyogo. I think a penalty might have been given here. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just trying to watch the replay here. I'm not entirely sure that's a penalty if that has been given, but it's still St Dun United 0, Celtic 0 at the moment. The referee, I don't know who it is actually, is getting word from the VR official. I've got a feeling this might be given as a penalty, you know.
Yeah.
But just in terms of A United, it's a massive, massive win. They're on a point behind Queen's Park. I've said before on the show that I would love to see Queen's Park coming up. Do you think that's going to be a massive dent to them?
I think a lot of people associate with Queen's Park, and a lot of people in football. I'm just waiting out. By the way, I'm on my phone, by the way, because I'm just waiting to see if it definitely is a penalty. Yeah, it is a penalty because Dundee is tweeting it, Graham. So, yeah, it's a penalty to Celtic. So, we'll just see if Celtic go 1-0 up as a result of that. But, in terms of Queen's Park, I think there's a bit of a dent. They've got 5 home games or 4 home games in February, starting Friday against Ayr, which is a massive game. And, I mean, Queen's Park have had 2 season-defining fixtures within the space of 2 weeks. February is massive for Queen's Park for me. 4 home games, albeit it's Ochil View instead of Smear. 4 home games, an opportunity to stamp your authority, an opportunity to reignite and rectify what's been a very good season so far.
Sorry, Dave. Can I just butt in here? The penalty's not been given. The referee has gone to the VAR monitor and he's clearly seen that Birighitti has got his hands on the ball first, and the penalty has not been given. So the penalty has been denied. It's still Dun United 0, Celtic 0.
Justification for VAR, Graham.
That'll be a first.
Well, that's all I said. That's all I was going to say at Queen's Park. See, but I did it just in the nick of time. So on Ayr United now, and they were absolutely fantastic on Friday. And there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of attention on Akanyemi this season, and understandably so. But the point I made to people about Ayr, and I've seen it myself when I've seen him up at Gayfield earlier in the season, was when Akanyemi's, there's a lot of attention on Akanyemi, and understandably so because of the goals he's firing in. But when he's off it, it allows like Sir Josh Miller and Bradley Young that opportunity to get into good areas. And whenever Akanyemi's off it, you see like Sir Josh Miller's been a massive player for Ayr this year, and he's scored some valuable goals for Ayr. They've also got the guy Julian Mitchell-Ross. I like the guy Mitchell-Ross. I think he's a very good player. He did very, very well on Friday and gets at the good areas and knows where the goal is as well. So he's obviously a player that provides a danger. He's a player that offers a threat as well. So, yeah, I think they have a lot to build on. They've got a lot of good positivity just now. And they'll be got to keep that going on Tuesday. I think we Bowen did the right thing, if I'm going to be honest with you, in terms of not getting carried away after winning 5-0 on Friday, because it's a fantastic win. But if you look at Ayr, there's so much potential for Ayr this season, albeit there'll be a lot of games in there as well. But Ayr, obviously, if they beat Cove on Tuesday, They play Elgin in the next round of the Cup. Now, that's a very winnable game for Ayr. Even although Ayr and Elgin drew 0-0 in the Premier Sports Cup early in the season. Elgin's a very winnable game. And then the quarter-final, you're one game away from Hampden. So there's a lot to play for Ayr. And it's about keeping the players' feet firmly in the ground, making sure they're putting in consistent performances and making sure they're still in the playoff push, because a lot of people tip Ayr to be second bottom or bottom. So for Ayr to be in a good position always speaks volumes of the job that Lee Bullen's doing.
Do you think Depot Akinyemi will still be Ayr United come Tuesday night?
Well, they'll be hoping. I can see a late bid coming in. I wouldn't surprise me if like a Hibs put in a bid, because he's the type of player Hibs would go in for, if I'm going to be honest. But it depends what the fee is. It depends what the financial constraints are. I think he would get a game in the Premiership for clubs. Absolutely, he reminds me a bit like John Newboy in terms of he went to the Championship and made the league his own. But then the president Ayr will be hoping for is the last 16 of the Scottish Cup on Tuesday night, and they're playing instead. Because if not, it could be a very busy Tuesday night for all associated with Ayr United Football Club.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about a team, you spoke about them earlier on. Hamilton went to Firhill for thrills, and walked off with 3 points. Dylan Stevenson, who made, I think, his debut for Hamilton, won the game. That is a huge result for Hamilton, and that was a much-needed 3 points for them, but they're still bottom of the league.
Yeah, it's funny how a few signs can kind of change your season or reignite your season, because they signed a player from Kilmarnock on loan, and they signed a few guys from Newcastle, and they've made a massive difference to the way Hamilton play. They're undefeated in 3. They've got a fantastic result against Morton, a result that not a lot of people seen coming. They beat Ross County in the Scottish Cup, that, irrespective of Ross County not exactly doing so well at the moment, Ross County are still a good side and a good win at Firhill yesterday. And I'll be honest, I didn't expect Hamilton to win yesterday. Morton was a bit of a surprise. I did expect Ross County to win last week. So Hamilton are beginning to prove people wrong again, and that can only be a good thing for them moving forward. And also, they'll be keen to obviously build on what's been a very good period. The only downside for them was obviously they both won it, because had they both dropped points, there's only been probably a 2-point gap between a Heartland and a Broth, but it's 4 points, and obviously a lot, but there's still confidence. And February could be massive in terms of the Championship bottom 3. I think you'll see a lot of twists and turns in February in terms of the bottom 3 in the Championship.
Obviously, Hamilton, their main aim at the moment is to stay up, but they've got a massive game against Hearts in the Scottish Cup, a game that's televised. I mean, there's nothing really that Hamilton can lose for this game.
No, I think it's the perfect time as far as Hamilton's concerned. It's an opportunity to see where they're at against a very accomplished and established Premiership side. It's an opportunity to test themselves. It's an opportunity to get a payday. It's an opportunity to get exposure for their young team, because they do have a young team. And it's an opportunity to see how they get on. Also, most importantly, it's an opportunity for shock and an upset. Now, Robbie Nielsen will be striving to be as professional as possible in the evening. But you never know what happens in the Scottish Cup. And Hearts need to be very vigilant of that.
100%. I know all about that after Brora a couple of seasons ago. So, yeah, we won't be taking that lightly. But in terms of Partick Thistle, they are now 7 points off the top. A really poor defeat for Ian McCall's side. I mean, I think I heard him last night. He was massively frustrated, and I think you can understand why.
Yeah, absolutely, because Thistle are the type of team that will do very, very well, then become very inconsistent. And there's a pattern surrounding Partick Thistle, and not a very good one as well, I may add. And that is the very frustrating thing as far as Ross County are concerned. They do not have a pattern at all. And that could be a frustrating factor, and one thing that will hurt them. I think the boys for Partick Thistle will win the playoffs, but performances like yesterday will derail them of the playoffs. So it's important to get back to winning ways starting next weekend. And also, they've got a massive game against Rangers coming up, so you'd have liked to have thought players would like to be working their way into Ian's plans to try and play at Ibrox. So I'm very disappointed one. But also what I would like to add as well, Graham, is fantastic from the Park Thistle fans, because they could beat 1-0 by Hamilton yesterday. It'd be very easy for the Park Thistle fans to just go home, sulk, be disappointed. I was reading through Blair McNally on Twitter. They sold 1,000 tickets within an hour of that defeat yesterday for the game at Ibrox, and that is some going.
100%. We know there's been a lot of problems at Partick Thistle. A lot of board members have left, but that is fantastic. I like Ian McCall as a good manager, and I think, the Rangers game, they've nothing to lose. Nobody expects them to win, so that's a massive, massive game. It's half-time at Tannadice. Dundee United 0, Celtic 0. Obviously, Celtic denied a penalty for the challenge on Kyogo, which I think is the right decision for me. But in terms of a team that has turned it round, Dave, Arbroath, what a massive win that was for Dick Campbell yesterday. 1-0 down to a goal from George Oakley, but goals from Colin Hamilton and Michael McKenna put a bit of daylight between themselves and Hamilton, bottom of the league. And they, as you mentioned before, they are now right on the coattails of Cove Rangers.
A point behind Cove and a better goal difference than Cove now. So that's some good. That's a very good positive. And if Dick Campbell isn't speaking absolute rubbish, and he hasn't been in January, he has signed 6 players. I think there's still more signs to come. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything on deadline day. I think Arbroath will keep it probably to the last minute, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's interesting to see how the January transfer windows went for Arbroath, because they were linked with Chief Chi and Griffiths. Now, Chief Chi wasn't exactly happening. He was on the verge of joining Morton as well for Chief Chi, but there seems to be a problem with visas or something. Hence the reason why he didn't join Dougie Emery's side. And then Griffiths, there's a possibility that Griffiths is going to America, I heard. I don't know if that's true or there's a speaking rubbish, but that came from an Arbroath player, funnily enough. So, yeah, that's rather interesting. But very good win for Arbroath. Hamilton obviously scored for Arbroath with the equaliser. So we tap in, but very good work in the lead up. There's a very good strike by Michael McKenna, with no chance for the goalkeeper, and a very good strike indeed as far as McKenna is concerned. So a very good 3 points. And McKenna scored the last time. Arbroath for Capital, and Arbroath subsequently won by 2-1 in that game as well. So it must be a wee pattern surrounding Michael McKenna and Capital. So he'll be delighted with that, of course. But Raith Rovers now for Arbroath on Saturday, and a winnable game at exactly the same time. It's a Raith Rovers side that, by all accounts, been a little bit disappointed by the 2-each draw with Cali. And what I find very funny is William Akio has joined Raith Rovers on loan from Ross County. That must be after unofficial reports that he was caught out drinking in Inverness just before Ross County games. So, yeah, very interesting affairs there. As for Dick Campbell, a very welcome 3 points for him. Dougie Emery says that players have been told and no one's certain that they don't want the season to peter out, and yeah, he's hoping that was a bit of a one-off, because by all accounts the second half performance was poor yesterday.
In terms of Morton, they are only 3, even though they lost, they're only 3 points off Partick Thistle in 4th. They're 9 points off Ayr United in 2nd. I don't really think there's any realistic chance of them putting a challenge in. Would you imagine that they could?
The bubble's burst a little bit in terms of title ambitions. I mean, I think as far as Morton's concerned, I think they've got a good blend of player. I think they've got a good cohesion, chemistry within their team. But at exactly the same time, I think they miss a little bit of experience to try and get themselves over the line in certain stages of games, and that's been a disappointing aspect as far as they're concerned. So I think Dougie Emery will maybe go and add 1 or 2 players before the deadline on Tuesday. And yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting one. Yeah, definitely.
We've got about 2 minutes left in the show. I just want to quickly drop into the League One, because Dunfermline, top of the league, drew with Clyde yesterday. Disappointing draw for Dunfermline. They'd expected to win that, I would have thought.
Yeah. Funnily enough, Dunfermline obviously 5 clear deserve a lot of accolades, but they have drew against Clyde and Peterhead this season. And that's, when you ask anybody in League One, they've all said that Clyde and Peterhead are far well adrift of the rest, but Clyde and Peterhead have still picked up results. But as for yesterday, I think Jason Pake was a little bit disappointed, and understandably so. And I mean, it's maybe a wake-up call as far as Dunfermline's concerned, because I've seen them in the flesh twice, and both occasions they've done very well. Yesterday was very disappointing, yeah.
100%. Well, that is all we've got time for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will be back on Tuesday for our special Transfer Deadline Day live show. We'll have some special guests on. We're on from 10 till 12. So anything that happens on Tuesday, you will hear it first with us. Thank you, as always, today for joining me today. We will be joined by Michael, who will hopefully be hosting on Tuesday. If not, I will still be here because I'm a professional. We will be back on Tuesday from 10 till 12. Thank you, as always, for joining us, and we shall see you at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Bye-bye.